It's not how I would want to live. It's not how I would want my society to be run. And I don't think you would either. And I think we can tell that because our laws don't reflect these laws. Hey guys, welcome to Joel Reads Bible. I'm Joel, and I'm reading the Bible so that you don't have to. And we just finished Exodus 20. We did the recap. It was far too long. I haven't even edited it, but I know it's just far too long. So if anyone finished watching that, you should get a prize, honestly. I mean, I should get a punishment for making it, and you should get a prize for actually watching it. But we're here at Exodus 21. We just learned about the first 10 commandments, and we are about to see what happens next. I don't know if Moses is going to come down from Mount Sinai or if we're going to get more rules. But I'm glad we're finally going to get those rules because Moses must have been doing a lot of judging without knowing what the heck he was judging. So now he can judge with a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more morality behind him. And we're going to look at God's objective moral standard as we, I'm guessing, read more of the Mosaic Hebrew laws that came from God himself. But without further ado, as soon as you subscribe, like the video, and then just plan your comments, please. Can we plan comments ahead of time? Don't just throw any old comment down. I don't like that. I need well thought out comments. A lot of the time I get people complaining that I'm getting this wrong, that I'm mocking God, I'm doing a really bad job. I don't even understand what the Bible's saying. But what they always neglect to do is correct me. They always neglect to say, this is how you're getting it wrong. It feels like it would be pretty simple. It feels like you just go, oh no, it means this. Very, very rarely does a Christian actually have any substance to add. So that's a little weird. But anyway, if you have a comment, think it through, and then please leave me a comment. I don't know why I was acting so brave for a second there, being like, think your comment through. Don't bother. Just do whatever you need to do because I really do need the engagement. Exodus chapter 21. I don't know why I'm yelling. These are the laws you are to set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year he shall go free without paying anything. If he comes alone, he is to go free alone. But if he has a wife, when he comes, she is to go with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and only the man shall go free. They use the word servant here in the NIV, and I know that usually when we read the word slave, people will say it means servant, but I think, and I don't want to sound like a Christian here, but if we read this with context, I think we can easily see that there is this word free. You know, this person is in some kind of a bondage, which is the opposite of being free. I know I am a servant. I have a job. And in that way, I would say I am employed. But I would never say that I am not free. I could quit that job at any time. I don't even have to wait 7 years. This particular servant has to be a servant for 7 years. But then if he hooks up with a woman who belongs to this master, she will always belong to her master. And if they have children, those children, human beings, by the way, also will belong to the master. And only the man is able to go free after the 7 years. We know, if we look in the previous parts of the Bible, there's nowhere where we see autonomy for women. So we don't have to sit here and go, oh, well, why is it different for women than men? We know the women were never not property, right? I've already said they're listed in property. We've seen it. If we really want to look at biblical context, it's I'm not surprised that the women are being owned, but also the children are owned. And there's kind of this sad story where if the man goes free, the women and the children are not allowed to go free. So it's he has to give up his family, which he probably would for freedom because, well, at least the wife. If there are boys, he's probably going to be oh no, my sons, I love my sons. Keep the daughters. I don't need them, but my son, If the servant declares, I love my master and my wife and children, and do not want to go free, oh, this is a twist, then the master must take him before the judges. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost and pierce his ear with an awl. Then he will be his servant for life. So will he never be able to go free? A lifetime servant? I don't know about you guys, but this sounds more like a slave thing than a servant thing. And it sounds like he wants to stay just because the master owns the love of his life. Now, I feel like this I love my master thing is him just sort of like making it seem nice. Like, I love my master. Yeah, I love you, master. Let me stay with my wife and my children because I love you first, master. Then I love my wife. Then I love my kids, I mean, it's nice to see that there's some love for a wife in the Bible because we haven't really seen that yet. This feels like a reflection of how we are supposed to love this God. We're supposed to first love the God above all things. And God is kind of like the master here, right? He owns the slaves, which are us, or in this case, the Hebrews. And then we can love our wife and our children. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as men servants do. This is coming down from God. I don't know if we realize this, but this isn't just some demented laws that human beings are coming up with who, are of a time and slavery is ubiquitous in this culture. This is coming from a God on high giving us objective morality. And he thinks that it makes most sense, and not just for a time, by the way, like because he's outside of time. If God's perspective was like this tiny, and he was just like, well, it just makes sense for now. But he can see that slavery is damaging, and he can see that it's not good for people to have their agency and autonomy torn from them and stolen from them. But if we really listen to this, if a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as men servants do. That's a slave. Like, I don't know how you read that sentence and go, not a slave. And if you want to do that this is a type of servantness that, do we like that? Do we think that that's good? Or do you think that objectively, this is a moral way to treat people, that you own them as servants? We won't use the word slave just to make you happy. She is not to go free as men servants do. And this is, of course, just some weird sexism. Women aren't going to have the same rights as the men. Why would the women have the same rights as the men? If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. I don't know exactly what that means, and like I say, I'm reading this at face value, and I do not look at the commentary. But if she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, what does that mean? To milk his cows? To sweep his floors? I have a feeling it's just not that innocent. Now, I don't know for sure, so your guess is as good as mine, but he has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. Has he broken something else? Is she damaged goods? Can she not be sold because she's been used? I have a feeling that might be the subtext here. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. So now we kind of get the context that does sort of explain what the keeping her for himself must have meant. If he marries another woman. So now he has purchased a daughter. By the way, I don't know if this purchasing of a daughter is just normal betrothal. It seems like this is maybe just the way they did marriage. Like maybe all women as I guessed from previous chapters, all women are property. They're all slaves. Now, you can interpret this any way you want. I am literally reading it at face value. Yes, I do have some preconceived notions of what's going to be said in this Bible blatantly. But this isn't incredibly blatant, but it does seem abundantly clear, if that makes sense. Hey, if you want to buy a daughter, which you're going to own and sleep with, she's going to be your wife in a sense, then as soon as you sleep with her, you can't just pass her off to someone else. You've got to keep her. Now, you're going to keep her forever, by the way. She can't go free. She's not allowed to go free. She's going to always be your property. But if you get more property, right? If you marry another one, if you buy another one for, I don't know, probably 50 shekels, don't ask me how I know that, then you still have to take care of the first one. And Christian apologetics will tell you that this is a good thing. That in that day, that was really great, because where would these women go? There is a world in which we break open this system as the timeless, all-knowing God and say, hey, let's give women autonomy so that they don't need this type of subjugation to get by in this world. They actually don't need a man. And hey, maybe that would be better. But maybe you're a fundamentalist, and maybe you think that this actually sounds like the best case scenario for any given woman. That's because you're indoctrinated and you hate women. If he does not provide her with these three things, she is to go free without any payment of money. Notice that she's a wife that he's paid for that isn't allowed to go free unless he doesn't take care of her. For the time, maybe that's a nice thing. Maybe that's a good way to take care of these people in this messed up society where women didn't have rights and they weren't able to survive on their own. So maybe it is kind of nice to make this little plan for them. Keep it in perspective. God knows all possible ways of being. He knows what we're capable of as humans, and he knows what is best for us in our physiology and for our cultures, and this is the best that he could come up with. I have a feeling that this was written just by some guy. Anyone who strikes a man and kills him shall surely be put to death. If you are a Christian and you believe that God is just, then this should be a just law. Anyone who strikes a man and kills him shall surely be put to death. You've got to sign up for capital punishment. Any man who strikes a man and kills him shall surely be put to death. Oh, but wait, there's a little bit of a caveat here. However, if he does not do it intentionally, but God lets it happen, he is to flee to a place I will designate. So if he's like, oh no, my hammer, and then he's like, God let that happen. God's like, yeah, I didn't change gravity for this one. I actually let it I'm in charge of everything. I'm in charge of all unintentional murders. That's God claiming all unintentional murders are me. I'm letting them happen. Okay. I'm not doing it. Yeah, I did Onan, but I'm not doing this one. His solution to this is the man needs to flee. Like a man needs to run and hide. Like, what is this God doing? What is this God's role? He's like, you better get out of here. This is not going to be good for you, and it's not going to look good on me because I was the one that kind of made that happen. But get out of here. Get out of here. I just feel like God should be able to do better than run away. Like, if you accidentally kill someone, just run. Just run away. Honestly, they will lynch you, and there's nothing I can do about it. There is literally nothing in this world that me, the all-powerful God, can do about it. But if a man schemes and kills another man deliberately, take him away from my altar and put him to death. So a reiteration of the first one. If it's your plan, if we know that it's your plan, it's hard to prove that. But if we know if you wrote it down, if you chiseled it into, some sort of a rock, you're dead. And look, do we want that in our justice system now? Again, this is God, right? He's just. If nothing else, I mean, I don't know this to be true 100% yet, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a verse that says it. God is just. Okay, he's the epitome of justice. Put it on the law books, Christians. Anyone who attacks his father or mother must be put to death. There's a lot of people that are going to be dying. Anyone who kidnaps another and either sells him or still has him when he is caught must be put to death. Attacking mom and dad, death. Kidnapping, death. Murder, death. So look, I don't do any of these things. I've never done any of these things. Just joking. I've never done any of these things. So I'm safe. But a lot of people attack their parents. We would be killing a lot of people. And there's a lot, I would actually kind of agree with verse 16 because human trafficking is horrific. I mean, especially these people become slaves of all sorts of different shapes and sizes. These people become slaves of every different type. And I think that the people that kidnap them should be put to death sometimes. You know what I mean? These people need to be stopped. It's horrific behavior. Anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. Curses them? You just have to curse your mom or dad and you get put to death? Honestly, that seems a little bit harsh. Can I borrow the car? And it's like, no. You borrowed the car 3 nights this week. You're staying in. Screw you, Dad. What? You know, like I'm thinking cursing as in swearing, but of course, in this world, cursing is like, and upon my father, there shall be a hex of famine, and thou shalt be seen as a real jerk in the land. It's not like normal cursing. It's like a curse that is going, a magical curse, a spell, if you will, that's going to ruin this person's life. If someone uses a voodoo doll of their father and it doesn't say that, but might as well. If men quarrel and one hits the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die but is confined to bed, the one who struck the blow will not be held responsible if the other gets up and walks around outside with his staff. However, he must pay the injured man for the loss of his time and see that he is completely healed. So that makes sense. That's not a bad law. You know, if someone smacks another guy with a rock, he hits him with a stone. Okay, these are violent people. If you just like smash a guy over the face with a stone and, he gets knocked out. I mean, he's going to have a head injury, right? He's going to have a brain injury, and that actually is pretty serious and will last for a while. Pay for his lost time. I could have made 3 shekels last week and I was confined to my bed. Well, here's your 3 shekels, I can't afford the 3 shekels. All right, now you're my slave for 7 years. I think it's that kind of thing. If a man beats his male or female slave with a rod and the slave dies as a direct result, he must be punished. What's the punishment? But he is not to be punished if the slave gets up after a day or 2, since the slave is his property. So this looks like it's kind of a comparison to what's going on in the previous verses. So if it's a guy that you're having a quarrel with, a free man, and you put him out of commission for a little bit, well, you're going to actually have to pay that because you don't own him. He's his own person, and there's value that he could be accruing by doing work and things. But if you own someone, a male or a female, and you beat them within an inch of their life, like you beat them and they don't die, after a couple days they get up, they're fine. No big deal. What's the problem? They're your property. It's like if I were to smash a window out of my house. People would be like, what's he doing? He's out of his mind, but it's his property. He's allowed to wreck it. He's going to have to put it back together, but that's his property, right? Keep in mind this God who, by the way, is making laws which are evergreen. This is objective morality. This is what Christians come at you when you say, I don't believe in objective morality. They go, if there's no objective moral standard, we're sunk. Well, we got one, and it is that you just can't kill the slave, but you can beat him so that he's down for a couple days, as long as he gets up. No big deal. Just don't kill him, which is what I love. I love that you're not allowed to just straight up kill a slave. That shows the dignity and the respect of the intrinsic value of human life. Thanks, God. If men who are fighting hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there's no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands, and the court allows. It's got to be the man, right? Like the man's got to show up and go, okay, what's the value of this slave woman of yours? And, oh no, it was a son. The son's fine, though. The son seems fine, We'll talk it out with the court. She's lying there with like a goose egg on her head. Do you want my opinion? Not really. Not really, woman. Take care of the preemie. Take care of the baby that you happen to have prematurely. Just shut up. The men are talking. Why do women think they can have opinions? I mean, it just makes me sick to my stomach. That's them talking, not me. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. I wonder what constitutes serious injury, because at the end of it, it's bruise. That's a serious injury? I wonder if any kind of injury is kind of serious. Somebody hit, ow, it's serious. It's serious. Hit his arm. Hit his arm back, It's serious. Any sort of wound. Oh, it's a paper cut. Give him a paper cut. Why are you fighting, babe? Why are you fighting? It's a paper cut. You want me to paper cut? Okay, I'll paper cut him. It's not going to hurt. Okay, oh, I touched lemon. Now you have to squeeze lemon into his. Well, that was your fault. Tell him it was his fault, But this is pretty aggressive stuff. Life for life, we knew that one. If you murder someone, you get murdered. Eye for eye, This is God's recommendation to these humans. This is how we are to treat each other in I don't know if it's loving way. I shouldn't say loving. In a just way. This is good. And you know what? There's part of me that goes, yeah, if someone knocks my tooth out, knock their tooth out. Someone plucks my eye out, pluck their eye out. This is something that feels right to me. I like the idea of revenge. So I actually am not going to push back too hard against this God's particular laws here. I don't know if this is going to last, if this God is always going to think this way, if this God is going to change their mind. Maybe God changes his mind all the time. Maybe this is just a temporary justice, that God is relatively inconsistent. I mean, he already does things in a very inconsistent way. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think this is good. You burn me, I'll burn you. If a man hits a manservant or maidservant in the eye and destroys it, he must let the servant go free to compensate for the eye. If he knocks out the tooth of the manservant or maidservant, he must let the servant go free to compensate for the tooth. Again, these manservants and maidservants sure do sound like slaves. They can't go free unless you really smash them up. If I knew that I was going to let my manservant go after knocking out his tooth, I would knock out his eye, because, you want to make sure you get the most bang for your buck, literally, pun intended. But really, if I'm mad at him and I'm like, ugh, and I knock out his tooth, I'll be like, well, you're going free anyway. Goodbye, eye, But the nice news is that I don't have to lose my eye. If a bull gores a man or a woman to death, where are these bulls coming from all of a sudden? The bull must be stoned to death, and its meat must not be eaten. What a waste. But the owner of the bull will not be held responsible. If I were a Hebrew, the loophole I would exploit in order to murder people. I mean, this would make a great murder mystery, wouldn't it? Why is everyone being gored by bulls lately? There's just this guy with a bull who's like, he has a bunch of bulls. He's bred all these bulls, and now he's getting revenge using bulls. And it takes, Lazarus, the detective. Hi, I'm Laz. I'm going to find out if these are random gorings, or if that's right, Someone is doing bull murders. I smell bull. Something like that would be the catchphrase. If, however, the bull has had the habit of goring and the owner has been warned but has not kept it penned up, and it kills a man or woman, the bull must be stoned and the owner must be put to death. Uh-oh. They already saw the bull murders coming, but that doesn't make any sense, by the way, because if a bull gores a man or a woman to death, the bull must be stoned to death. How could a bull have a habit of goring? Now, unless he does some goring and it doesn't kill people, he's just doing a bunch of painful goring, but it's not fatal goring. And then he does a fatal goring, but this was after the owner had been warned. Then the owner would be put to death. Well, fair enough. However, if payment is demanded of him, he may redeem his life by paying whatever is demanded. Okay, so they've got a bail. They've got a life bail. You were warned about your stupid bull. 50 shekels. 50 shekels and you can go free. Okay, I don't want to die. I'll pay 50 shekels. This law also applies if the bull gores a son or daughter. Both are equal. That's the first we've ever heard that. If the bull gores a male or female slave, the owner must pay 30 shekels of silver to the master of the slave, and the bull must be stoned. Well, it's nice that they're still stoning bulls. I guess they're like, we don't need a dangerous bull on the rampage. It might kill a normie. But a human life? What is the value of a human life? It's really hard to know that sometimes. Well, Bible tells us 30 shekels of silver. Now, I don't know what the equivalent of 30 shekels of silver was, but that's the value of a human life. We have it here. It's in Bible. 30 shekels of silver. Do you get that? That the God who created this world, the universe, and everything in it, a God who might just love us. We're not sure yet. He'll love us if we love him first. The God who is never changing, immutable, a God who is good all the time, thinks that human life is worth 30 shekels of silver. Do you worship this God? Do you worship the God who thinks a human life, okay, it's a slave life. That's the thing. You're like, well, not my life, a slave life. That's what you're thinking. You're going, well, not my, that's slaves. They're slaves, but they're human lives, okay? He's separating the values, right? He's the one that goes, these are slaves. They have a different value than these non-slaves. If you thought in your head that this made sense, that this was fine because they're slaves, this religion has wrecked you. This religion has made you a bad person. If that crossed your mind, okay, a person is worth 30 shekels of silver in Bible times. So saith the Lord. If a man uncovers a pit or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit must pay for the loss. He must pay its owner, and the dead animal will be his. This is a good law. Not a lot of these laws are good, but this is a law for the time, and it makes sense. If someone digs a big pit for whatever they're doing, maybe it's a foundation for a building, probably not in those days, but whatever. He fails to cover it. He doesn't do his job. And let's say the equivalent these days might be a car careens and crashes into it. Yeah, you're going to have to pay the damages. In this case, they go, you can have the donkey, you can have the ox, you have to pay for it. You get a useless dead animal, but maybe he can eat it, I don't know, maybe not the donkey, but if a man's bull injures the bull of another and it dies, they are to sell the live one and divide both the money and the dead animal equally. I mean, I guess it's an accident, so that's fair, However, if it was known that the bull had the habit of goring, yet the owner did not keep it penned up, the owner must pay animal for animal, and the dead animal will be his. There are 3 laws that seem fine. It's interesting that The laws regarding animals in this chapter seem more reasonable than the laws regarding people. Christians will constantly attack people that don't believe in their God and say, yeah, you believe that we're just animals. We're no different than the monkeys. Why is there any sort of morality? It looks like your God believes that, treats both with a very similar sort of justice. And when it comes to people, that feels really wrong. That feels bad. It's not how I would want to live. It's not how I would want my society to be run. And I don't think you would either. And I think we can tell that because our laws don't reflect these laws. When somebody murders someone, they are not instantly murdered. They are not just put to death. If someone attacks their parents, they are not simply put to death. If someone curses their parents, they would never be put to death. Ultimately, we do not agree with this God's morality or this God's sense of justice. We don't like it. And that is seen by our particular laws. We also don't seem to like this slavery anymore. This system seems demented. It seems like something human beings came up with because it suited them at the time. It doesn't seem like something a God that's unchanging, that has a bird's eye view of all time, would come up with. But hey, look, maybe it is. Well, we'll see what happens in the next chapter. Again, let's keep in mind that this is chapter 21. Chapter 12 was the first time these people were out of Egypt. They had just been slaves, and now we're learning how they can turn each other into slaves. They're like, remember when you guys loved being slaves so much? Well, you can make each other slaves. And what is also just completely bonkers is that this is the first set of laws after the 10 Commandments. Can't you do laws for like other things before you get right back into slavery? Or is slavery just that important? Almost the most important thing that happens in these people's lives. It's so ubiquitous in this culture that they can't shut up about it. And now you and I have to bicker over whether or not this God endorsed slavery. Well, the God doesn't exist, but the people of this time, 100%, were perfectly happy with having slaves. And you better get over that because that's just a fact. Stop lying to yourself. All right, I'm going to see you guys next time. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Looking forward to chapter 22. Bye.